Snake in my sleeping bag with me. A night I'll never forget. I was frozen with terror. Something was coiling tighter around my leg with every breath I took. In the pitch black darkness of our tent, I could only hear my friend Tony's snores and feel whatever thing this was, wrapping itself around me like a vice. Was this how I was going to die? Well, obviously I lived to tell this story, but that night in the 1980s changed how I think about camping forever. Let me paint you a picture to start. It was the 1980s, as I had already mentioned. No smartphones, no GPS, no fancy gear. Just two guys in their 20s with a passion for fishing, a polystyrene cooler, and absolutely no idea what we were doing. My friend Tony and I had done this before, weekend fishing trips to quiet spots. But this time, we'd chosen a weekday to avoid the crowds. Just us, a decent-sized dam, and our eternal optimism that this time we'd actually catch something. Setting up the camp in those days was an art form. 15 minutes just to get a two-man tent standing upright if we were lucky. True to form, the fish weren't interested. Hours of waiting, not even a nibble. But we didn't care. We had our canned beans, a couple of beers, a few steaks and stories to tell around the campfire. By evening, we'd grilled our steaks, baked our potatoes in the coals, and called it a perfect day. Early to bed, early to rise for tomorrow. We'd surely catch something tomorrow. As we settled in for the night, Tony made a comment that would haunt me for hours. "Your sleeping bag doesn't look right." "Is it inside out?" he asked. But I was already cozy and warm. "It's fine," I mumbled. "I'm not changing now." Within minutes, Tony was snoring like a freight train. I drifted off soon after. I don't know what time it was when I jolted awake. Something was wrong, very wrong. I tried to move my leg and felt it. Something smooth and muscular coiled around my calf. And when I moved, it tightened. My blood turned to ice. Every horror story about snakes in sleeping bags flooded my mind. I was trapped. Arms pinned to my sides by the sleeping bag. Whatever this thing was, had me completely helpless. Even the much-hated mosquito buzzing around my head didn't bother me anymore. I'd take 1,000 mosquitoes over this. I tried to call Tony without moving. "Tony, Tony." But he just kept snoring. Every tiny movement made the thing tighten around my leg. Was it getting ready to strike? How venomous was it? Finally, Tony stirred. I whispered frantically, "Don't move fast, but I think there's a snake in my sleeping bag. It's wrapped around my leg." Tony shot upright and scrambled straight out of the tent, leaving me alone with whatever this was. When Tony returned with his flashlight, his face was pale. "I can see it moving," he whispered, shining the light up and down my sleeping bag. That most certainly made it worse. Now I knew there was definitely something there. We debated our options in hushed, panicked whispers. Tony wanted to grab me under my arms and yank me out. I convinced him that this was a death wish. Finally we agreed. He'd slowly unzip the side of the sleeping bag, inch by inch. My goodness, that zipper took forever. Every tooth sounded like thunder in the silence. I held my breath, waiting for something to strike out at Tony. Down the side, around the bottom, nothing escaped. But I could still feel it, tight around my leg. By now, we'd been at this for what felt like hours. Fear and exhaustion were making us both irritable. Finally, Tony had enough. "I'm ending this," he said, and grabbed the top of my sleeping bag. "Wait, don't," I cried. He flung it open, and shone his torch directly onto my legs. I squeezed my eyes shut, clenched every muscle, and waited for the end. Then Tony started laughing, not just chuckling, hysterical, uncontrollable laughter. It's not a snake, he wheezed between fits of laughter. It's your sleeping bag ties. The long fabric ties that you used to roll up the sleeping bag. Remember, it was inside out. They had worked their way around my leg and tightened every time I moved. I started laughing too. The relief was overwhelming. Hours of pure fear over fabric ties? I grabbed my knife and cut those ties off immediately. Tony was quiet until he realized I wasn't planning on using it on him for initially deserting me. That night taught me two things. Always check your sleeping bag is right side out. And secondly, sometimes the deadliest predator in the African bush is your own imagination. But here's what's interesting. In my upcoming videos about Africa's amazing wild animals, you'll see that our fears often focus on the wrong things entirely. Sometimes a snake really is just sleeping bag ties. Have you ever had a camping experience that turned out completely different than you expected? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe in your sleeping bag when you're camping. See you next time.